Welcome to the astrology for the week of July 23rd through the 29th of 2023. Now, this week we do have Venus in retrograde. This is the first official week of Venus in retrograde in Leo. I'm recording this on the day that Venus is actually stationing to go retrograde. So we are going more internal, we're going more within. We are reflecting on our more creative and artistic side, as well as how we love. And are we loving from the heart? And what lights us up, what we're passionate about. If you want to find out more about Venus and Leo in this Venus retrograde season, then I have a deep dive video on this transit. I have a video on my thoughts for Venus retrograde in Leo, and then I also talk about it in last week's horoscope, which you can find on the live tab of my YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube. And so, you can find in that video something like, the nodes changing signs into Aries and Libra, Venus retrograde in Leo, astrology for the week of July 16th through the 22nd. In that video, I talk about Venus retrograde in Leo. But getting into this particular week, July 23rd is a really, really big day because we have several things occurring. The first thing is Mercury squaring Uranus. Now, squares in astrology are aspects of tension and conflict. They represent a challenge that needs to be faced. And challenges are very much about the hard work that you put in. It's like an obstacle course. That you have hurdles to overcome. It's not just a smooth track. There's bumps in the road. There are signs that you need to get around. There's hills that go up and down. So it's sort of, uphill. You're going uphill. It's, more difficult with the square energy. But you can grow quite a bit through that hard work that you do. So squares are 90-degree angles where you have two signs in the same mode. In this case, we have Mercury in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. So Leo and Taurus are both fixed signs, which are very willful, but also very stubborn, and they can commit to something, that they do and get it done. But when we have Mercury, the planet of communication, our intellect, and really how we interact with the world around us, how do we actually communicate? How does our mind work? That's all Mercury. And then Uranus is the higher mind. Uranus takes us a step bigger with the ideas that we come up with that are totally unique to us. They are our own original ideas and the things that we want to implement and act upon that are unique to us. And Uranus comes from a mental space of freedom where, I don't have to follow you. I don't have to follow this signpost or this, rule. I can sort of do my own thing and move on my own path. So Uranus gives us the open-mindedness and freedom to take time and step into our minds and really explore new ideas and new ways of doing things. And it gives us that boost and that strong sense of freedom to act upon what we want to do to explore. And it can just be trying something different. So it's a very sudden energy, and it's also a very revolutionary energy. So Uranus is a farther out planet than Mercury. It travels much slower than Mercury. Uranus does retrograde once a year for several months at a time. And then Mercury goes retrograde a couple times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. So say Mercury goes retrograde in all the fire signs for 1 year. Then for the next year, it goes retrograde in the water signs. And then, a little bit of the water signs, Mercury goes back into the air signs. So that's how its retrogrades work. So Mercury is the lower mind, and then Uranus is the higher mind. Or Uranus in astrology can be the higher octave of Mercury. So Mercury square Uranus can bring about the unexpected. This is a transit where you want to expect the unexpected, expect things to go off. You may make plans and you may have lists, but then the universe might throw a curveball in them, might throw something in your path that you were just not expecting. But this was meant for you to experience and something meant for you to happen. This may bring about information that carries a lesson to it. And that lesson has profound wisdom in it that deals with the themes of Uranus. That the information that may come about may encourage you to liberate yourself where you have not liberated yourself yet or as much before. So it brings about the unexpected. So any conversations, interactions, promotions, business deals, any kind of conversation or relationship, someone you could expect unexpectedly come into your life. I mean, who knows how this is going to show up for you? But I am giving you the potentials and possibilities. Even though I am fully aware that when I do these videos, a lot of the information that I talk about, when I turn within myself, that doesn't really resonate as much as I wish that it would. And with astrology, it is so easy and so natural to take it for granted. And that's what I think that I do. I sit at home, I do things, I live my life at home now. And all these astrological events go on that I talk about and describe for you, and yet I take them for granted. And I really wish that they meant more to me. And maybe I could do things so that they do mean more to me. Who knows? Maybe you can use this video as launching off points that, okay, this information is being given to you, and so how can I make use of this information? What can I do to be productive, and what can I do to really maximize and take advantage and use this energy to the fullest, potential and tap into the higher vibration of the energy? So that's something to do. So but in the predictive sense, there is some unexpected events. There may be unexpected events also in the news, also on the global scale. Unexpected things may happen. This is a wonderful time to consider, how can you change up your day-to-day routines? Like what can you do in your day-to-day reality, in your day-to-day life of the normal things that you do when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you make the coffee, you have breakfast and all those kind of things. And Mercury rules the day-to-day. It's about your mind being in focus and in tune with the things that you need to do for yourself on a day-to-day basis because it rules Virgo. So, and Uranus comes along and it wants to bring about some stimulation. It wants to loosen up where things have got stagnant. It wants to open up the can of ideas and release whatever is inside the can out, so they can have air and space to breathe. So Uranus comes about and asks, what can I do to change things up? So any kind of daily routine that you have, any routine, any structure that you have that you do on a day-to-day basis, now that's the time to evaluate that, reevaluate that, and ask yourself, what can I do to change this or improve this? Or maybe I could do something a little bit different this time, even if it's just a millimeter worth of difference. Maybe I've been going about something in the same way, and maybe I could just change it up a little bit. Try something else. Mix it up. So maybe, I've never meditated in the morning before. You could try that. Walking earlier in the morning. Having, I don't know, maybe journaling in the morning. Doing a tarot and oracle reading for yourself. Whatever it ends up being, for you, that is, change and excitement. Because Uranus is about change, number one, and excitement, the thrill. It just wants to light some enthusiasm under you to try something else. Because Uranus always wants to get you out of any rut that you try to put yourself in. So with this can also come, speaking truth, because it is a square energy and it is a difficult energy. Squares make the energy very challenging. So there could be you feeling the sense of you want to speak truth. You want to speak what is on your mind, in your heart. But then it may be upsetting to the people around you. But then it may be too hot to handle, as they say. That you may speak, but what you have to say is not moderated, or there's not a filter or limitation around it. So, restraint of pen and tongue at this time is really something to keep in mind. Because, one of the things is, it is a time where you can speak more honestly about what is really on your mind. But then you may have something which is on your mind that you want to say, and it just may come out of your mind. You may just end up saying it, or feeling the need and freedom to say it. No matter how mundane that this day may be for you, depends on what you have going on in your life. But it's important to be mindful, to understand the value of this energy when it comes to having something that you want to say and get off your chest and express, but putting a filter around it, speaking about it in a kind, diplomatic, fair, and well thought out way. You're speaking at it from a place of maturity, that you've sat on this, that you've thought it over multiple times before just saying it, as something, real and raw. That you've, thought about the decision that you're going to make, and what you're going to say carefully before saying it. And so there may be some radical ideas that you may have, some, flashes of insight that you may have, like, I've never thought about this before. This is a great, new perspective. Any Mercury-Uranus alignment brings about something out of the blue that you realized, or a new idea for doing something, for trying something new. For what? I've never tried that before, but I want to try that. You know what? I actually can do that. And I've actually held myself back from breaking out of this pattern. I've held myself back from trying something else, liberating myself from this limitation, from this thing that I want to try to do and experiment with. And now Uranus brings through that knife that cuts through butter, and it gives a sense of truth, and now it gives you more inner strength to liberate yourself. This is also a time where this is wonderful. This inner square, the square energy invites a lot of hard work, really putting a lot of hard work in. So innovation, coming up with new, original, out of the box ideas, inventing new things, being very experimental. This is a great time for learning brand new things. It gives you a brand new open-minded sense of, I want to learn this thing that I don't know much about. Or maybe, and I find this is so, maybe going back to your daily routines. I have this daily routine of thinking about this, and I have this daily routine of devoting my day to this topic or this subject or this activity. But maybe I can branch out and learn something new, do something new. Maybe you've put your eggs in one basket of, my focus is all about astrology. Maybe I feel like I'm looking down in my shelf and I found a history book that I want to read in there. Maybe I've been watching so many shows on TV, and maybe I could read, maybe I could, read a book about, Huga or something else I'm interested in. Whatever it is that, sort of branching out of any rut. If you got caught into becoming so obsessed in one particular subject matter where it feels like you're stuck in the same old fishbowl and you're learning the same old things, and there is this sense of you're going around in the same old hamster wheel, and there isn't a whole lot of room for growth and trying something new. Or if you feel stuck, if you feel like, gosh, I've had it so easy, or I wish there was more to my life. I wish there was more meaning to my life. Then maybe breaking out of something that you're so stuck in is going to be important here. So, but it can help with becoming more open-minded. So great for becoming more open-minded to learn new things. Now with the energy, it can also lead to being scattered, sort of, scattered all over, going over here and over there, and sort of unfocused, or sort of impatient, feisty, I'm going to make up a word, jitsy energy. When I think of that word jitsy, I think of jittery, jitsy, jittery. They're very, very similar words. And I can make up new things. I can create because it's Uranus energy that we're talking about. So there could be that sort of symptom, I want to say, is feeling scattered, feeling you have so many things, this over here, that over there, and you're not able to focus your attention and start something and commit to it. That's, how it can show up. So using the Uranus and Taurus energy, that Taurus energy of being very patient, being very one step at a time, being very slow and steady, to set your mind on something, set your sights on something, and commit to whatever it is that you initiate, to achieve something, whatever goal that you have, and fulfill that goal, get it done. So on the mundane sense and in the individual sense, the square is also wonderful for thinking up brand new solutions for ways of doing things. It's also great for problem solving. Finding the solution to problems, thinking up solutions with other people. Creatively thinking up solutions, new solutions which maybe are innovative, out of the box, brand new, out of the wazoo ideas that you didn't expect that you would come up with, or other people didn't expect that you would come up with. but they work. They are useful. They do the job really well, and they're also unique to you. So this is great for any kind of problem solving, getting to the root and truth of situations, scientific, anything that deals with the math, anything, technical, such as math, and science, getting down, anything that is abstract, really getting into the nitty gritty because we're talking about Mercury here. So science and math is also great with this. So that is this particular square. Now, there's also another thing that is occurring on July 23rd, but this is not only occurring on July 23rd. The next two things I'm going to discuss are not pinned down into one particular day, but they are extended. They just happen to exactly occur on this day. Here's the thing. I do not want to, sit on these videos and go into all this explanation and what does it mean? All this information and then what happens later on. It doesn't make sense anymore. It's not relevant anymore. So that's why it's very valuable to keep these videos shorter and more to the point, not giving away every single bit of information that there is about this content. But say you're watching this 2 to 3 years down the road, or months or weeks down the road, there is still value in this video, even though it does not exactly pertain to the time period in which that you're watching it at. So, Chiron, which is an asteroid, is going to go retrograde from, I want you to mark your calendar, July 23rd through December 26th. Now, right around December 26th is going to be a full moon in the sign of Cancer, so it's going to bring it's going to illuminate things. It's going to be an ending of some kind when it comes to stuff going on in your emotional inner world. We just had the new moon in Cancer on July 17th. And so that full moon in Cancer in December is going to have you going into your inner world. You're going to focus more on your emotional needs and wants, more so. And I find that full moon is going to be an ending to all of the wisdom and all of the reflection and inner work that you are probably going to be doing for these next 6 months, or almost 6 months, when Chiron is retrograde. So Chiron retrograde, Chiron, first of all, is an asteroid. It orbits between Saturn and Uranus. So Saturn's a really rooted, grounded, practical energy. It is about the old, the set structures of what is. It's very about what is. This is how it is. This is the reality. This is the hard work that I need to do. Uranus is the new ideas, the realizations. And Uranus can be an enlightened planet. It can lead you towards a sense of freedom. And you can become more authentic with Uranus energy, and it liberates you. So, that's, where we can talk about Chiron and healing wounds. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's a little bit of a myth to Chiron, because Chiron is a centaur in myth. Now, some of the details that I may be describing maybe are vague. Some of the things that I may be describing in these videos may not be exact. They may not be exactly accurate. They may be a little bit made up, because I want to, again, liberate myself. And I don't want to limit myself into the finite bits of information that I have about certain things and, pin down into, this is as much as I know. Well, this is more that I can give you. This is an idea that's coming to me that comes to me in the present moment. Intuitively, and you know what, I have this creative idea that I want to share with you that is just, it comes up. And it's not necessarily based on fact or research, but it just makes sense and it feels important and interesting to bring up. So, Chiron deals with being abandoned and unloved as a child, sort of shamed, sort of put down by his mother. And so that wound was sort of in place from the moment that Chiron was born. And so then, Chiron grew up. He taught, students how to, archery, those kind of things, how to fight, all those things, he taught other people how to heal their wounds. And he was probably a spiritual teacher, a counselor, a guide, someone of that nature, a wisdom keeper. That's kind of where we're getting into that Chiron myth. And then there's another, I was watching this video from Cosmic Arts on this particular YouTube channel, and she was talking about Chiron, and the meaning of Chiron in astrology. So there was a fight that broke out one day. Centaurs were fighting each other, and so Hercules was one of Chiron's students. And I don't know if he was there in that situation or not when that fight ensued. But so what happened was Chiron was trying to probably protect somebody else. But then when he turned in a certain way and put himself in a certain situation, that wound hit Chiron. And so what ended up happening is that you're thinking about a centaur with Chiron, half man, half horse. So if you've ever read Black Stallion, all those kind of things, understand the psychology and the nature of horses. They represent being wild and free. They represent, in a spiritual sense, the freedom of what it means to be alive. Of an instinct, being connected to what you want, where you want to go, your desires. Horses do not want to be pinned down, they want to be free. But then you have your human mind, which is much more elevated and much more advanced. Your logical intellect, human mind, or your head, that put Chiron in trouble. He didn't listen to his gut. He didn't listen to his instincts, his intuition. And he put himself in that situation where he got hurt with a wound that was based upon, some type of snake creature or something. I don't remember. There's, some name for it, and there's a huge, there's some story it was in the Odyssey. And you can go deeper with that myth of Chiron. But so he was wounded. No matter what he did, he was never able to fully heal this wound. Bandages, people providing him with medicines, whatever happened, whatever he tried to do, he couldn't heal the wound. And so, what's so interesting is that when Chiron perished, the wound was finally healed. And so Chiron to me represents, in this sense, and this is all the ideas and sort of, the knowledge, some of the knowledge base and thoughts that I have about this, is that you were born, you have these specific wounds, but you probably have your whole life. And unless it goes down in the water, and those wounds will be finally healed. It isn't so much about fully healing the wound as it is having self-acceptance for it, having understanding for, and acknowledging, okay, I have this wound, this is what is going on. And you can find a greater sense of self-love and compassion for yourself in the process. It really is about holding space for the wounds that you have. Because Chiron is, your wounds. It is the wounded healer. It's, your place where there is pain that is emotional and psychological. And so these pieces inside yourself are very tender, and they're very sensitive places that you want to hide under closed doors, that you don't want people, the outside world, to see. They are probably secrets. They're probably skeletons in your closet. And it's not about being ashamed of the wounds that you're feeling, wanting to disown or push down or be rid of the wound. It isn't about judging it as bad or, a nuisance or inferior, but it is about seeing the positive and the potential and the opportunity for growth and empowerment and resilience that can come from working with this wound and healing it. Similarly, if you think about shadow works, this can be, your personal shadows that you may have, that is about facing those shadows and doing that healing work. Shadow work can also be another thing. Now, with Pluto retrograde, with retrograde on May 1st, it's still retrograde. We have Chiron retrograde, Neptune retrograde, all these retrograde planets, especially with Pluto and Chiron, we're really having the opportunity to do some deep healing and, a deep dive into our emotional world and some of our shadows and, hurts and, wounds, all those kind of things, and going deep and understanding them and facing them and seeing them at a deeper level. So, I think that the gift with Chiron is that when we do this healing work, when we go through these really difficult and painful experiences, we can then hold space for other people who are going through really painful experiences, and there is a greater sense of empathy and understanding for them. Chiron gives us the opportunity to be very compassionate and hold the lamp with a heavy hand, with guiding people into the underworld of their own lives, into their own pain, and inviting them in to the wounds, to the shadows. And we can become stronger and more understanding and more loving when we, go through that healing work, especially the Chiron return, which is around age 50 in your life. So, that's one advantage of this. So there is a quote that I was reading from the poet Rumi, which is, "The wound is where the light enters you." That you can open up the wound and give the light space to come in and heal it, where you can find the light within yourself from that pain, from that hurt, from that vulnerable part of yourself, that maybe that was meant to be there for a reason. Maybe you can accept or even embrace that part of yourself. Maybe that is a positive thing. Maybe that is a strength that makes you uniquely who you are. And so, and there may be some healing that you may be doing during Chiron retrograde that may occur, where you're healing in a way that's not linear. It's also not, just overnight. It takes time. And it is about accepting the pain, holding space for it, and doing that work in a present, grounded, slow and steady, patient way. And then when Chiron goes direct in December, we have all this wisdom that we've gained when it goes direct, and we can see all that deep work that we have done. We can see our wounds at a deeper level more clearly because we're going subconscious when Chiron is retrograde. We're going into the unconscious. And so we can look back and go, wow, I've healed. I've done this work. I've faced the shadows. And look at how much I've grown. So that's something with there. And, another really important piece here is that Chiron's in Aries. It's been there since 2018. So this deals with healing our identities, healing our sense of inner power, who we are and what we want to do in our lives, who we want to become in our lives, what do we want in our lives. And maybe we were shamed into and judged into you not being able to have that, not being able to do that or attain that or be this particular way. Of anyone programming you into a conditioned, wounded sense of self. Now is the time to take a look at that and release that. It's really similar to having the South Node in Aries or having the South Node transit through Aries. So this deals with our sense of self-worth as well. So, our, self-worth, that, are we worthy of living this bodily experience, of going about our lives in the ways that we need to and that we want to, of experiencing whatever we want to in our lives, from being, for being uniquely ourselves. Are we being ourselves, authentically ourselves, unapologetically? So when we face the wounds, Chiron in Aries is that much of an indicator, that much more, that there's courage that can come from having the courage to step into the wound, face it, and do the healing work. And we can find a greater sense of self-empowerment and a greater sense of strength, and self-confidence and self-love when we heal our wounds. So it's about not viewing the wounds as points of pain, but as launching off points for later gains. What is the opportunity in the wound? How can I grow from this? So that's one of the things that is going on. Now, the other thing that's occurring is that Pluto is going to be squaring the nodes. I have a whole nother video about this. This is occurring exactly on July 23rd. This is an ongoing conversation of Pluto in, there was a square in the spring of 2023 with Pluto in Aquarius and the lunar nodes, North Node in Taurus, the South Node in Scorpio, all fixed signs. But then now, Pluto is backed up into Capricorn, and the North Node and South Node have moved back into Aries and Libra. So now Pluto is squaring the lunar nodes in cardinal signs. So we're dealing with the cardinal energy now. So Pluto squaring the nodes. The lunar nodes are points of fate and karma. The South Node is where we're coming from. Our gifts, our talents that we've sort of came from in previous lifetimes, or what we're naturally coming in with, but also deals with old patterns and outdated patterns that we need to release at this time that really do not serve us. The North Node points to our destiny and our point of evolution and meaning in this lifetime. If we want meaning, then we want to really integrate that North Node and evolve. And that Pluto squaring the North Node has that skip step of, well, in order to do this, it deals with facing the shadows, facing the unknown, being willing to go through crises if need be, going through challenge, letting go, going through challenges which require you to let go of what no longer works for you. It's about being willing to transform in a way where you are, welcoming in change. And that's what this is about. If we look at Pluto, which is the planet of death and rebirth, transformation, that whole cycle of, and just on, a day-to-day basis. We take in food, we release it. We take in liquid, we release it. So it's just what we put in, we get out. We have these new experiences, and then something has to be released from what we do in life. So, death and rebirth, things have to die for there to be new energy, for us to be reborn, to feel clearer, to feel better at a more higher vibration, more spiritually sound, and more healed and evolved. That we must release what no longer serves us. And if we're not willing to do that work, then the universe might throw some circumstances in our path which may have us releasing what does not work and what is pulling us down, even though we want to hold on to it and attach onto it so tightly that we're not willing to just let it go. So, and it is about facing very, very hard truths, especially dealing with past conditioning, especially dealing with our old patterns that don't work for us. First, we have to become aware of what doesn't work for us, and then we have to be willing to transform and let it die for us to be reborn and purge what is no longer working for us and go through the discomfort in order to get the other side of that, get to the other side of that, and not holding back the release of it, not holding back the change, and the letting go. So, I've already discussed this information. So Pluto and Capricorn, we're dealing with power dynamics, top-down structures, people in power that are having a lot of control, that limit us, that take away our own sense of inner power. And so, are we going to go back to those old paradigms and old ways of being where it was really judgmental? It was very, again, top down, power over. Or are we going to, let that go and tap into something more feminine, with greater balance and harmony and appreciation for all of the life around us, for the earth, the sky, nature, where we're balancing the masculine and feminine, and we're understanding, the oneness and self-acceptance, because, we need to be able collectively to leap into the unknown, to go into what is scary or unknown, and to let go of the need for certainty, to face what is negative, dark. It could be very difficult. It could also be very intense. And Pluto is about the darkness, and are we willing to go into that darkness? So, the real conversation with this is, what does it mean to be human? And this is about accepting and understanding people for who they are. connecting with others, and holding loving, compassionate space for other people, non-judgmentally. This is about really being non-judgmental over other people, and loving and accepting people for who they are, not who we want them to be. So that's what this is about. And when we let go of that need to change people, that need to judge others, need to put them in the box, need to put them in a certain way of being, then that can be really profound for us, where we're understanding that we are all one, and we're one in humanity, and all those kind of things like that. So that leads back to Pluto and Aquarius in that conversation. So then we move on to July 25th, and now we're talking about the quarter moon in the sign of Scorpio. And so we have a quarter moon. We have the sun in Leo making a square to the moon in Scorpio. So the quarter moon lies between the new moon in Cancer we had on the 17th. And next week we're going to have a full moon in Aquarius. And so we have the sun in Leo, which is super passionate. It's very charismatic. It wants to shine its light so big and loud and big and bold so that other people can see it. It wants to love from the heart. It's a very generous energy. That's Leo energy. It is about here I am, and I'm going to take up as much space as I want to, and shine my light, and act from my heart space of inspiration. And Leos can be very charming. In nature, that people are gravitated to them. People are drawn to them. They light up the room, just like the sun gives warmth and light. Without the sun, there would be no warmth and no light. And so the sun is really the reason why we're all, living, and we're all here on the planet. One of the reasons. And so there is this sense that the light fades away when Leos leave the room, but they give the light, they give the energy, they give the spark of fun and fire, and they turn up the volume and keep people alive. So so we have the moon in Scorpio, which is very intense, very emotional, and this deals with really going below the surface. This is not just on the surface stuff. We are really looking deeply. We're going intense. This is very intense. We are looking at some very intense emotions at this particular time. Some very deep emotions. And this could make us a little bit more secretive. We want to turn inward. Scorpio is a really secretive sign. He doesn't want, the exposure from, public. I think of just caving in to it, cave and holding things inside. So going more into your deeper emotions, to your innermost emotions, you're really facing those, deep emotions. It's important internal time. You're really seeing what is below the surface, and maybe those darker emotions that you have inside of you. Now, this could make you just more moody and more, depressed, of not wanting to be here now and live on this, and have this earthly experience. And so that's one of the downsides, is becoming really, really down and depressed, and feeling very dark with this particular heavy emotional moon. And so this is a great time for soul connections, not just surface level small talk conversations with others, but connecting deeply with other people on an emotional and soul level where you're really understanding each other, talking about what it is that you're feeling, acknowledging each other's feelings and pain and whatever emotions that they're experiencing, and being vulnerable with others. So the combination of the Leo Sun and Scorpio Moon is really one that is intensely passionate, very, very creative, and very emotionally outgoing. Leo and Scorpio, you put the two signs together, and you can have somebody who's very, very emotional, feels emotions so intensely, has such strong and powerful emotions. And this could also be temperamental. There is temperamental tendencies of being, very, dramatic with the expression of your emotions, being very, loud and strong, and being very intense with those emotions that you express. So, Sun in Leo, Moon in Scorpio can also be very sexual, sort of lend itself to being very, sexual, willful, because we're talking about fixed signs. That Leo has a goal, a heart desire, a goal, an ambition, and it's going to achieve it. And Scorpio has a desire. It has a desire that it wants to hold on to and move to, like, so quick as your hand is dissolving in quicksand. And it is about, well, I have this thing that I want, and I'm going to really do whatever I can to get it. So there is that energy with Scorpio that you could really use this quarter moon to your advantage, and you can, be very committed to a goal that you're going to do whatever it takes to achieve this goal. But in a way that is helpfully destructive towards, what you must burn to get to what you want. So this is a time for a self-inventory. The moon in Scorpio comes around every month for you, just like the snake, because that's one of the symbols of Scorpio, for you to shed the skin that you need to shed. That part of a snake. This the part of a snake's life is shedding that unnecessary skin. So anything that you need to shed, now is the time to do that. And that moon square Pluto also adds to some intense emotions. Some deeply buried feelings coming to the surface. Those kind of things could come up. But the moon is also one of the relational planets. And so one of the things also is there could be, what if there's relationship issues with the moon square Pluto at this time? What if there is some jealousy in relationships, addictions that you have, toxic patterns, unhealthy patterns that you're continually trying to feed and heal? But these things that you do for yourself are also hurting the people around you. And so if there are any unhealthy, destructively bodily addictive tendencies that are addictive tendencies that hurt your physical, emotional, and psychological well-being, now is the time to come face to face with these things and decide to let them go. But then we move on to something much more pleasant on the 27th of July. Now, what happens on the 27th of July? Well, Mercury is directly in conjunction with Venus retrograde. So Venus retrograde is going on at this time. This is not one of the aspects that I spoke about and discussed in my Venus retrograde video. So when Mercury is conjunct Venus, This is good for communicating in a very kind way to other people, communicating kindly to somebody, speaking kind words to another, any kind of gesture that you can give that shows that you love and appreciate somebody. Sending love letters, buying a Hallmark card for somebody, even if it's not their birthday, even if it's not a holiday. With this energy, it's a more social energy. You could be feeling more social, like you want to meet new people. You want to find peaceful solutions to problems as well. This can be great energy for resolving conflict in very diplomatic ways, where you're willing to talk it out and hear the other person's perspective and have those kind of conversations where you are understanding where you're coming from. You're finding an agreement between two people, as opposed to defending yourself and being very defensive and being very combative and argumentative. And it's like it's a zero-sum game where you're right and they're wrong. Well, this can actually be beneficial for us finding more peace in our interactions with other people. So this is a great time for conversations that have more give and take, where you are speaking and then you're listening to the other person, and then they're speaking and then you're interacting and have a nice, healthy, well-balanced interaction. And then, the other thing that this is good for is, anything that is creative or artistic that you can do. You could be feeling just more artsy, where, writing, painting, whatever it is that you define as creative or artistic, it's a good energy to do that. Now, I do have to acknowledge that on the 28th of July, the final thing that's happening that I want to discuss for this week is that Mercury is entering Virgo. So Mercury is going to be in Virgo for quite a long time because of a retrograde from August 23rd to the 15th of September. So when Mercury is in Virgo, we have, we're more precise with our speech and our words. We can speak more with precision and with more care and more detail. We're really putting more emphasis and detail into what we're saying. So making sure that we're communicating the right way, we're saying the right things that we need to say, we're being clear, we're being to the point, we're getting the right information that people need to hear. We're also looking at things more critically, looking at things from a more detail-oriented perspective with Mercury in Virgo. This is about becoming more discerning over the information that we're taking in. Is this useful? Is this going to be a practical use for me, or is it not worth my time and energy to invest in reading this or learning this? So that's something also to consider. So it wants to have a conversation or learn information that is going to be a practical use. So this is a great time to look in your world and find out where are you not being organized and on top of things, of what details that you need to take care of. And, even just organizing your space, cleaning out your closets, doing those kind of things. When Mercury is in Virgo is super helpful, and there's a sense of satisfaction where it really can improve your state of mind when you organize and clean up and declutter. And so looking around at what needs to be cleaned up. And then taking care of the little details that you have to take care of in your life. Your daily routines, your family, all these kind of things and doing it in a way where, oh, it's not a burden. Oh, it's not like I, have to do this, even though that these things may be, your responsibilities, but it's really doing it with a smile, really doing it with love and care and patience and the real desire to serve and add meaning and help other people improve their lives, make your lives better because you care and you want the best for them. So that's just a little bit about Mercury and Virgo. I will probably explore this transit in later depth because maybe I'll do a separate video on that Mercury retrograde in Virgo in August. But anyway, this was your weekly astrology video for the week, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed. I will see you next week.